Vandy pulled off the biggest upset in school history by being the more physical team.
You are Locked On Vandy, your daily podcast on the Vanderbilt Commodores, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Corey Burton. Thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Well, today we learned that as the goalpost was traveling from FirstBank Stadium to the waters of the Cumberland, that Vandy executed their game plan to perfection. They made big plays in the passing game when they needed them. They won the explosive play rate, limiting Milroe and Williams. But most importantly, Vandy pulled off the biggest upset in school history just by being the more physical team. So what does it mean? Well, they were more physical offensively. They were more physical defensively, especially up front. But we'll start on offense first, okay? And this is where I was most impressed. I said it in the instant reaction, but I was most impressed with offensively how their offensive line really took charge of this game, especially in the run game. So when you look at how they were able to run the ball, they got big run after big run after big run, and they all seemed to happen when they needed it the most. You have a second and first and 10. They won first down, first of all, but there were several third downs that were converted on the ground just by the offensive line creating seams and things like that. But they did a great job of neutralizing Alabama's talented defensive front. They did a great job of cutting off linebackers from pursuing, because that's what Bama really does well, is those defensive line guys hold up the offensive line and allow those linebackers to they allow them to pursue, and they allow them to scrape over the top and chase down anything from the B to C all the way out to the edge in the option game. So what Vandy did a really good job was not letting the linebackers, the outside linebackers, or even the inside linebackers be extremely disruptive in the option game, and that's why it was able to go. Because I don't think Bama really – they got flustered by it, because Vandy was giving them so many pre-snap looks. They were motioning. They were doing all sorts of things to kind of disrupt all of their keys, that they were kind of flustered in what to do in the option game. You know, how do we attack Pavia? How do we attack the pitch guy? The pitch guy changed every time. The pitch guy became Eli Stowers on the power shovel. And then, it just was one of those things where, okay, 1, 2, 3, and you play option rules. And when those rules get turned upside down, you're right back to square one where you're scrambling around. And when you play a step slow, that allows your team to be less physical. You're thinking more, and you can't fly around and make plays like you normally would. So this allowed Vandy an opportunity, especially up front, to really hammer that defense physically, and this is exactly what they did. They provided those run lanes that were huge on first down. I mean, so many first down runs where normally it would have been stopped for -2 to no gain at best case scenario. Now we're getting worst case scenario 3 yards, best case 8 to 10 to 12, and sometimes they're ripping off big chunks on first down. But it set them up to be able to allow them to stay on schedule, and that's what's important, right? Also pass protection, right? They were more physical, more aggressive in pass protection. So it allowed Vandy to protect Pavia in the sense of where he could deliver the ball where he needed to. He could get out on the edge and create some things down the field in the passing game, or if nothing was open, he could tuck it and go and pick up those much needed yards with his legs, kind of like what Milroe does all the time. So, you're looking at the way this offensive line played, and they just played beautifully because they allow these opportunities for Vandy to advance the ball down the field. They allowed Vandy to have 42 minutes of time of possession. They allowed the rushing yards to pile up. They allowed them to win on first down. They allowed them to move the chains. That was everything that they wanted, right? Those all fed into the keys of the game, right? Control the tempo. They had to be more physical. Win the explosive play rate. They got explosive plays because they were physical up front. They won on first down because they were physical up front. And because they took it to Alabama, they limited the penalties and they played a much cleaner football game. But here's the tale of the tape. Okay, this gives you a good bit of the story as far as the physicality that Vandy played. And Clark Lee said in his post-game presser that he thought the more physical team won. He thought the better, more physical team won. Vandy was better tonight. Vandy was more physical. You've never heard anybody say Vandy was more physical than anybody, much less Alabama. So that lets you know right there, and I'm going to take it full circle. When we first started this whole journey of changing Vandy football, this whole journey was started with Coach Steiner in the weight room. And he said, hey, never again are we going to get pushed around. Now, Vandy may not have the depth, but they've got some quality guys. And they've got some quality physicality guys. And they've got a quality culture. And that culture is going to bring more people. So let's look at the tail of the tape. This tells a lot of the story. 26 first downs, which means that fed into the time of possession. Look at the time of possession. Good Lord. 42.08. All right, 42 minutes, 8 seconds of possession versus Bama's 17 minutes and 35 seconds. I mean, you have to be grinding out. And you have to be on schedule. You have to be more physical to have that kind of stat. 166 yards on the ground. That is a good bit of rushing. If you told me that my team could rush for 166 yards a game, I would take it, because more than likely when you rush that well, when you rush for that, if not more, you're usually on the winning end of it, right? Now, Bama rushed for less than 84 yards, so the defense actually pitched in as well. The defense was extremely disruptive, not letting Bama get going up front, not letting them get going in the run game. And that shows you that if you can hold a team under 100 yards, you're more than likely going to win. Now, the secondary gave up 310 yards passing. They were able to offset that a little bit and give themselves a chance to win. But ultimately, when it came down to it, Bama just was not physical enough. And that is so weird to say. I've never, ever, ever once in my life said that about an Alabama team where they were not physical enough. They're always physical enough. That's how they beat you. That's how they overwhelm you. They do that physically. They road grade you on offense. They disrupt and just destroy any blocking angles. They destroy your offensive line defense from a defensive perspective, and those linebackers wreak havoc. It's like a freaking storm surge. It's like a tidal wave of bodies coming at you, and you can't do anything about it. But for once, Bama was on the receiving end of that. Bama usually delivers that, but this time they were on the receiving end of that. Vandy was overwhelming them offensively and defensively. They were disrupting their rhythm from a defensive perspective. They were knocking Alabama back. They were tackling they were hitting at the point. The contact was amazing. They were hitting at the point of attack. Tackles were being made in the open field. Very rarely did I see a guy skirt, stop, and go and have guys dive by. Right now, Bama made their plays, and we knew they would. And they made some plays. Ultimately they made a good bit of plays, but not enough. But it goes to show you that in this league, this game is living proof that, hey, in this league, if you're willing to be physical and you're willing to get down and dirty in the trenches, you can win in this league. And that's what Vandy showed. They can absolutely win in this league, right? They won with 166 rushing yards, but more importantly, they won by only giving up 84, right? Bama couldn't do anything physically. They couldn't do anything in the run game. That limited them, and that made them one-dimensional. That's how you beat a team like that. You make them one-dimensional, and Vandy did just that. They made them one-dimensional, which really slowed their rhythm down, and then they held the ball, which shows that they were just banging and grind out yards throughout the game that Bama had no answers. Bama their will was ripped from them. They kind of sleptwalk into it, and Vandy just delivered a haymaker to start the game with I think it was an 8-play drive to start the game They rammed it down their throat into the end zone for 6. And next thing you know, Vandy is they're up 7-0, and Alabama's like, whoa, what's happening here? Like, this doesn't ever happen. We're usually the one that delivers the first punch. We're the one that usually takes the shots, and they didn't. They surprised them, and Bama seemed like they could never recover. So physicality matters, guys. It matters. It matters. It matters. If you can be the more physical team, it matters, right? Missouri was just a few plays more physical than Vandy, and I think a lot of it was Vandy ran out of gas against Missouri. Vandy said, no, we're going to work during the bye week to get our conditioning up, to get our strength endurance up, our muscular endurance up, so that we can be more physical in the fourth quarter and close out a game when it matters. And boy, did they close out a game when it matters. That sack on Jalen Milroe, that sack was made in January during mat drills with Coach Steiner. That sack was made in spring practice, right? That sack was made from January all the way through training camp up until this moment. All the hard work, that sack to essentially clinch the game because Vandy would go down and score. That sack was made months ago. And that is what buy-in looks like. In Alabama, I don't know what happened since the second half of the Georgia game. They've been shell-shocked. And they have not handled adversity very well. Clark Lee has taken all of these learning experiences and said, hey, we're going to be okay. We're going to finish one of these games. And they picked a hell of a one to finish. So physicality matters. Physicality matters. All right. Your identity matters. Having one matters. And they have a physical run first, attack you mode identity. So, but with that, you need things that build into you need other aspects that build into that identity. And the passing game is one of those things. And I thought the passing game improved greatly over the course of this season, and it's continuing to improve. But they made some really good plays in the passing game. We'll talk about that next and what that looks like. All right, this episode is presented by LinkedIn. When you're hiring for small business, you need to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get qualified candidates within 24 hours. So you need to hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or resources to hire. So they've made the process even quicker and easier. They've launched a new feature that helps you write job descriptions. So 2.5 million small businesses on LinkedIn for hiring. They use it for hiring. So post your job for free on linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All righty, welcome back. It is Locked On Vandy. We are in segment number 2. We are rolling on here. This whole cloud post Bama Cloud 9. We're still sitting on top of Cloud 9 here. But it was an amazing win for a team that deserved it after all the moves they made, after everything that has happened to this program. Clark Lee deserved this win. And so we're talking about it here. We're continuing to unpack. They have a game to get ready, so we can't spend too much time dwelling on this victory because Kentucky's looming right around the corner. But this was an amazing game, and this game shows that, hey, everything Vandy's been working towards from an identity perspective, from a physicality perspective on both sides of the ball, from a program culture aspect of it, from strength and conditioning. That was the changes that were made in that regard that were made in January when Coach Steiner came aboard. The changes in philosophy where Clark Lee took over the defense. Jerry Kill came in to be kind of like your other head coach. with Tim Beck to lead the offense. I mean, this whole philosophy change, this whole program culture change has been amazing. These guys have bought in. They've been more mentally tough thanks to Coach Steiner and thanks to Clark Lee's direction. This has been a change here. Like most Vanderbilt the last 2 years would have folded. They wouldn't have gone back at Bama. They would have folded, right? And they would have just let Bama roll on over them. It would have been Bama would have covered the spread. It would have been bad. And they did not allow that to happen. It's a culture thing. It's a mentality thing. It's hey, they're going to put their stamp, or actually Vandy is going to put their stamp in a game like Bama, and they are going to go on and execute no matter what. And that's mental toughness. That's something that was built in January, right? All this has been coming together for a while now since Clark Lee made all those moves. But you talk about the passing game, though. Okay, the passing game has been much improved over the course of the season. Like the first game against Virginia Tech, you had some flashes, but it really wasn't consistent. You really wish it was. Like Junior Sherrill was good at times. Quincy Skinner was good at times. He had that 31-yard touchdown catch against Virginia Tech. It was on a really good 50-50 ball in the back of the end zone, on the back pylon to be exact. He won that, had some good moments, but largely has been inconsistent and ineffective in some games. And then there hasn't been any other guys that have emerged that have been worth a dang, right? Their performance. They're all good players. They just haven't really emerged yet. Eli Stowers was really good. He was starting to become a weapon, but weren't really sure how he fit in, and teams would key in on him, and there wasn't much he could do. He was essentially neutralized largely against Missouri, largely against Georgia State, which that was an odd game plan to begin with. But these receivers just, what they did? They didn't pitch a fit. They didn't do what Malachi Moore did and, start and take their ball and go home and punt it and do all that crap, right? They just kept plugging. They just kept going. They kept churning. They kept grinding. And they knew their opportunity was going to come at some point. And they're still grinding. They're still learning. They're still not there yet. They're still not as consistent as they need to be, but they're getting better. They're getting more opportunities, and they're actually executing on those opportunities. Like Junior Sherrill on that bomb, it was a 4th-and-1 play action shot. You really only that was an extremely low percentage play. But Pavia gave his guy a chance. He made a play for him. It was a touchdown. Amazing catch, just an amazing play that Junior Sherrill actually needed big time, because Junior Sherrill was struggling, right? He was kind of in the tank. He had gotten the wide receiver version of the yips, and he just didn't mentally. He just wasn't there coming into this game. It was hey, he's just falling off the wayside. Not much was going right for him, and some of it was, self-inflicted, but some of it was he wasn't comfortable. He didn't have that chemistry with Pavia. He was starting to get passed by a freshman, but he said not so fast, right? He makes a play in this Bama game that's amazing, and he made several other catches. And some of the routes he ran were really good, even though he didn't get targeted. He was able to pull defenders. He did his job. He opened other opportunities up when he did not get targeted, and he was actually a much better receiver if you watched him and his routes. And he's going to be a guy that you're going to look back and say, man, I can't believe he struggled, right? I can't believe there was a rough patch for Junior Sherrill, right? Quincy Skinner, I thought, had a much better game. I mean, the catch totals weren't all that impressive if you look at it from just a number standpoint. But if you look at it from just an overall production standpoint and what they were able to do, those catches were big, right? Now, Pavia only completed 16 passes, right? 6 of them went to Stowers, 2 went to Junior Sherrill, that one big one, 3 went to Quincy Skinner, 2 went to the back, and 3 of them went to the backs, and then 1 of them went to the other 2, and the other 2 tight ends each had 1 as well. And Kamarian Johnson actually had a touchdown catch himself. So it was not a lot of passes thrown, but they were spread out amongst everybody. And that just goes to the philosophy of having true balance. You're spreading the ball around to different people, but each of those guys made an impact, right? Now, and you don't have to have 12 catches for 150 yards to make a big impact on the game, right? You can be like Junior Sherrill and have a stat line that reads, I was looking at the rushing totals. That reads 2 catches for 45 yards and a touchdown. That touchdown being a 36-yard play action bomb on 4th and 1. Like, those are things that are impactful. Like, I would rather be impactful in this situation, because that's going to, if you want to go to the pros, they're going to see the tape, right? If that's your concern, they're going to see the tape. They're going to see how you practice. They're going to see your attitude. They're going to do their due diligence, right? They're going to see plenty of tape on you, because guess what? They record everything you do in practice. Okay. All those competitions, why do you think backups get drafted? Why do you think there's guys that you're like, whoa, who is that? Like, where did he play? I don't remember him. Yeah, because they go to practice. They watch practice tape. They watch game tape. They watch how these NFL scouts are good, right? So as these wide receivers emerge, you'll start to see more of an impact. You'll start to see those catch totals go up a little bit for Junior Sherrill. You'll start to see them go up a little bit for Quincy Skinner. They'll have to, because they're going to have to start building a passing game around what they're doing. You see it coming. You can see it on the horizon. I see it coming. You see it coming too, right? They're getting the tight ends more involved. They got 3 guys that had at least 1 catch at the tight end position. Eli Stowers, obviously I said this in the preseason, and there's no shock to anybody that that follows Vanderbilt football, that Eli Stowers was going to be a difference maker. We all knew that. It's nothing new. I'm not telling you something you didn't already know. I just reiterated it. But it had to start somewhere, and it's going to start building. It's going to start building with Skinner. It's going to start building with Junior Sherrill. Then you're going to get these freshmen involved. And that's going to build the foundation. So the passing game got much improved. They made big catches. A lot of third down catches that were converted. That 4th and 1 play action shot, that was probably the ballsiest call I've ever seen. Not ever, but that's one of the ballsiest calls that they could have made in that situation, right? You're on the ropes, man, and you're 4th and 1 and you're taking shots. That's ballsy, man. But if you're Vandy, you do that, because what do you have to lose? Alabama's number 1 in the country, and you're 24.5-point underdogs. What do you have to lose by taking a shot? They took it and they got it, right? Low percentage. He put the ball exactly where he needed to, and Junior Sherrill made the play. And so that's amazing. But anyway, limiting explosive plays on defense is also a big deal. We're going to talk about how they did that and how they did that so masterfully as far as limiting what the damage that Milroe and Ryan Williams could do. We'll talk about that next. What time is it? Game time. Ooh, right. Game time has a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Gametime Picks. Here's what they do. They filter out the fluff to show you only the incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets, right? So how awesome is that, right? The curation makes it even easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, and theater. They have all-in pricing too. You better toggle this feature on or you're crazy, because this feature shows you the total up front with no surprise fees at checkouts, right? So it has to be toggled on, just so you know. Okay, don't, if it's not toggled on and you call me a liar, I'm going to ask if you toggle it on. And if you did, then okay, so be it. That's a game time issue. But anyway, seat views. They have a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. I love this. That's my personal favorite feature, because it's such a cool feature that you can see that it's you get that preview of hey, this is what the view is going to look like, right? They have the lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Game Time ticket coverage, man, this is the best. Their purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege. That's LOCKEDCOLLEGE. That's LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. All right, we are back. We're wrapping up the show here in just a few short minutes. Locked On Vandy, thanks for making us your first listen. Thank you, everydayers, for making all this possible. Thanks for all of you who came into the instant reaction. I'm down here in Naples, Florida, actually enjoying my fall break. I'm going to have to come down here more often for these big games because it's, I guess this South Florida air brings good luck. But make sure you make Locked On SEC your next listen. Chris Gordy does a phenomenal job with his show, and I imagine the SEC squad is going to be on point this week. So, but looking at this game as we wrap, man, just one of the things that impressed me the most is, besides the physicality, I think that played into it, it allowed Vandy to kind of really execute their game plan masterfully as far as being able to limit the damage that Bama was able to inflict. Because if Bama were to get their tempo and force Vandy into their tempo, this would have been a totally different game. But what Vandy was able to do by being more physical, by winning time of possession, is they were able to limit Bama's explosive plays, right? And that's where they hurt you. Jalen Milroe, Ryan Williams, they can really, really derail the football game. And they can do it just like that, right? And so by limiting that and by holding on to the ball, by controlling the clock, by putting a little pressure on Bama saying, oh, gosh, we're going to have limited possessions, we better press, that disrupts the rhythm. That creates a sense of stress and urgency that doesn't really need to be there for Bama. And it really just kind of throws them off. And you throw a team like that off rhythm just a little bit, next thing you know, they're panicking. They're trying to hit plays down the field at all times. And next thing you know, they're getting sacked. They can't get anything going in the run game. Your best player has limited catches. He had that one big play, which you're not going to be able to stop Ryan Williams from all of those. But you had Ryan Williams only have 3 catches. He had that 58-yarder that brought his average up. But you take that out, and let me do the math. He had 3 catches for 82 yards, which a normal stat line would have been amazing. But like if you told me that you would hold Ryan Williams to only 3 catches total, right? I would say you're crazy, and I would say Bama probably did not win that game because he is. And I talked about it before. I've talked about it with my friends. He is unequivocally, and we talked about it here on the show when I had Jake. He's arguably the best wide receiver in the country. He's only 17 years old. He should be a senior in high school, but he's the best receiver in the country. Why? Because he's fast. He has really good body control. He can freaking teleport. He can lose you in a phone booth, and he's fast down the field. So to limit his impact to only 3 catches, and one of those catches being a 58-yard touchdown, which you're going to get, because with superstars, you're going to get something. Right? You're not going to hold them completely shut down, right? But you limited to only 2 catches outside of that. And for, let's see, let me do the math. I'm going to have to pull up my calculator here. 82 minus 58. He only had 2 catches for 24 yards out. You take out that 1 touchdown, 2 catches for 24 yards. That's shut down, in my opinion, when you're talking about Ryan Williams. That was amazing, right? So they were able to frustrate him a little bit because I know he wanted his touches. I know he wanted to get going, and they could not get him the ball. Same with Milroe. Milroe was disrupted. He threw that pick 6 early in the game. He couldn't get anything going. He was seeing ghosts. He was seeing things fly around. Everything was so quick in front of him. It just was not pretty. So you disrupt their rhythm, and they're not able to do the things that they normally do on a regular basis when they're able to blitzkrieg you and just overwhelm you with what they can do offensively. So it's amazing. They played a masterful game plan, and limiting those explosive plays really helped Alabama with what they were trying to do. So hats off to them, limiting those explosive plays, and they really played into that. So they really played that role of disruptor. If they can do that again this week, Kentucky has a guy, Barron Brown, to give you a quick 10-second preview before we get into them really more this week. Barron Brown is a guy that can make a similar impact on the game. You take him away, and you really have neutralized Kentucky's offense. He's kind of really the guy. And then their defense is hard to run on, but you can do some other things and you can wear them down, actually. So, but that's all I got for you guys. We're going to put this one to bed here. Alabama goes down. The goalpost in the Cumberland. Vandy's fined $100K, which I guarantee you they're doing cartwheels to the SEC office to deliver that check because they don't care. Biggest win in program history, first time they've ever beaten an AP number one. They've ended a 23-game losing streak to Alabama. The last person to do it has been on this show before Diego Pavia. That's Kurt Page. So he joined some very illustrious company there. And Vandy is really kind of just setting a new standard for who they are. Now, the goal now going forward is to capitalize off that and show that this was no fluke, right? Show that hey, we beat Alabama. We have the goods to beat all these other teams. So that's the goal moving forward. But with that, Alabama goes down 40-35. Historic win for Vandy in this program. They needed it. And that's all I got for you guys. We'll see you back here tomorrow on the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. If you like what you hear, follow, like, subscribe, all the above. And we'll highlight you tomorrow. Peace. Anchor down.